Hey guys, I'm going to totally teach you how to use your 3D printer now that we have learned how to do the CAD for actually the architecture behind 3D printing. Now we're going to talk about doing it on a 3D printer. Now, some of you have 3D printers at home. If you don't, we don't have one at school right now. I use the one I have at home, or of course, we can go to the library and use theirs. But in case you want to know how to use one, if you get one or if you have one and aren't sure how to use them, I do want to show you this because it's an important part of 3D printing is actually using a 3D printer. Okay, so first of all, you go on to Tinkercad just like we've been using, and you're going to find one of your designs down here, whichever one you want to use. So I'm going to actually use this one back here. And you can either say tinker this, make sure it's exactly how you want it, or with me, I have access to all of your stuff. So when I say tinker it makes a copy for me, or I can just straight download. So if I straight download, I'm going to save it as an STL. Now, if you download it as, you can download it for laser cutting if you wanted to do a laser cut of this. Now, obviously, this Batman one probably could do a pretty good laser cut. Basically, it's the opposite of 3D printing is rather than printing it, it cuts it all away. In many ways, it doesn't work as well. However, it works pretty well in a lot of situations, okay? Especially for this Batman spinner, it probably would work excellent. But we're doing it as the STL. So I copied it and it downloaded for me. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my slicer, okay? So my slicer is called Ultimaker Cura. Now, if you go to Ultimaker Cura on like Google, it is a free download. It works best with my printer, and it actually works with a lot of printers, so it's probably a good one. What you do have to do is once you're on Ultimaker Cura, it'll have you do things like match up, well, what exact printer do you have? And it'll ask you all these questions so that because it's specifically geared for your printer, okay? So you go ahead and upload it. And in here, you've got, different places. Like here's the printer, and mine's the Creality Ender 3. And you could add printer. You can add printer, and that's where you would add whatever printer you have. So if there's a networked printer or whatever, that would all be on here. And you can actually just click whichever one it is. So if you look, there's just all these, hundreds of different kinds of things, okay? And so you would add that, okay? Now on here, this is where I'm going to open up, and now I can click on the Batman fidget spinner, okay? Now here I do, the most important thing is I'm going to make sure it's in the middle, okay? It's just easier to print when it's in the middle. And basically what happens is they're just choosing their recommended settings. Knowing that I have the printer I have, they're just taking everything they can. So I am going to use PLA, and I do have a 0.4 millimeter nozzle. Okay, so usually we're going to do PLA when it comes to the things we're printing. We're probably not going to use ABS because it's just very, very breakable. PLA is just a tiny bit more flexible. Okay. And so we're going to do PLA and use a 0.4 millimeter nozzle. The filament itself is 0.2 millimeters. So that's kind of part of, and they actually say that right here. So they're asking what kind of, it's 2 millimeter of the plastic, the filament, and then you're going to use this kind of nozzle. Now, if you click on here, this is where you can actually fix any settings you need to change. So let's say you're using the settings they recommend, but you don't love some of the things about it. This is where you can change it, okay? So for instance, like infill would be how much density, how much air is on the inside. So if you have something that's completely solid, that's going to use a whole lot more filament, but also it's going to take longer. And also if you're making, let's say we're making this fidget spinner, we don't need it to have every single piece of it. Like it'll be lighter. Okay, so it'll be lighter